June the 3rd. Well, this week the House of Commons narrowly voted against the compulsory labelling of ritually slaughtered meat, but the campaign to get halal and kosher meat clearly labelled in supermarkets and restaurants continues both here and on the other side of the channel. Big issue in the French election, thanks to President Sarkozy. Is this a concern for animal welfare or a form of anti-Islamic or anti-Semitic prejudice? Should halal and kosher meat be labelled? Do you have a real problem with this, don't you, Alastair? Alastair Kirk from the Barnabus Fund. You think a lot of Christians would have a problem eating a bit of chicken or whatever, which has had a non-Christian blessing, yeah?
Yes, I mean, let me just say
why is that a problem?
Well, we're not opposed to religious groups having access to food which has been prepared in accordance with religious requirements.
Yeah, but tell me about the blessing point, because it's fascinating.
It is. I mean, there are many reasons why people might be concerned about religiously slaughtered meat, but particularly halal, because there is, over the past few years, an introduction of halal across mainstream products. And many Christians are concerned regarding the actual Islamic blessing, as the meat is prepared facing Mecca. And which is in fact Sharia compliance, and the compliance is all the way through the entire process.
But if you say grace, does that not kind of...
well, absolutely, but many Christians are concerned about that.
The blessing?
Yes, about the actual blessing. And really, we are just...
but it's just a bit of chicken at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I love chicken, but I don't really want it to be
your chicken with a Christian blessing.
With Sharia.
Yeah.
But we just want it to be labelled. We want there to be a choice, so that
people know.
So that people know.
Yeah.
So that the Christian, and in fact, many other people, groups as well, including Sikhs, who are discriminated against also in this area, can make an informed decision, and that there is also a choice. That it should be labelled.
They say in halal, for example, that the animal has is made sure it has a good life and also a good death. That is said of it. And also, should you not be more concerned perhaps with intensive farming and factory farming issues than you are with the prayer that's said at the time of death?
Well, there are many reasons. The prayer is just one.
Right.
I mean, I know that there will be some represented views here of the actual animal welfare. I should also must point out that the issue isn't quite the same with kosher, which is already very adequately labelled, and there isn't quite such the pressure for it to go into mainstream.
Right. But it's halal. Okay, let's move it on.
But another concern, Nicky, is that people need to know where their money is going, and not many people might realise that a proportion of the cost of the food does contribute towards a halal certification agency, and there are examples of those organisations also being involved in other Islamic activities.
Okay, let's move it on.
I just think people deserve the right to know.
Let's get this going. Does this matter, James O'Brien?
In the great scheme of things, I'm not quite sure I understand your argument. I respect your sensitivities, but if I'm a Christian and I eat some halal chicken, are my religious beliefs being trumped? Am I endangering my spiritual welfare? Am I compromising my ability to get into heaven?
That is a personal decision.
Well, what's yours?
That's a personal decision.
Am I?
But look, within the Christian...
It seems to me that if you believe all other religions are wrong...
It is a conscience issue.
It's a right to know, isn't it?
But it is a right to know.
This is about transparency.
What should I be worried about?
Well, we have things on labellings for absolutely everything else.
Spiritually, what am I risking by eating halal food?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, you can. Mark Mullins.
The reason is that in 1 Corinthians 8, the reason why we're advised not to eat labelled food is that it might give the appearance to some, although I would say Christian grace over it, some might think that I am in some way giving some credit to the Muslim God who was originally blessed this food, or blessed in his name. Is it not
the same God, ultimately?
No, it's not the same God. The God of the Bible, the Muslim God has no son. Jesus Christ is the Son of God.
So we shouldn't label the food.
Well, actually, James, I agree with you.
Yes.
I don't think we should for that reason. We don't have to, but of course welfare concerns may dictate that we should because some people may have objections.
You're not really answering my question because he thinks they should label it.
Well,
and
what
you
I'm
said
saying
you'd
to
answer
you,
my question from the
your
position that
question,
they shouldn't.
James, your question was, will it endanger my soul?
What am I risking?
What you're risking, if you say, if in your heart you have no issue about it, then you don't risk anything. The problem is you may cause somebody else, a weaker brother, to think that by you eating halal food, you're in some way endorsing the Islamic God in whose name it was killed. That's the reason.
I just want to... What about David, the Islamic position? Should this meat be labelled?
Yes, it should, for the very good reason that if you see the technical superiority of what happens when you slaughter an animal according to either Jewish law or Islamic law, as compared with stunning, and this was done in Germany, then you can see the superiority. So let's just label it, but show which animal suffered pain. And the kosher and the Islamic way shows the animal suffers no pain. Stunning is extremely violent. But to go back,
stunning happens in 80% of halal meat now, doesn't it?
But it can't be halal then. So it is. Well, I'm just saying that if you stun...
But there's been a compromise just before death. 80% of halal meat is stunned.
But you've already injured the cattle, you've injured the animal, and you've inflicted severe pain
so
on the animal.
So 80% of halal meat is not halal meat?
Correct.
Right, OK. So you're a purist on that. Is it cruel, Sean?
I'm correct on it because I've been a butcher, I've been in the meat industry for many years, and the whole thing is that Muslims have compromised.
A lot of halal is sold under false pretenses?
Absolutely.
All right, that's interesting. Sean, is it cruel? Cutting the trachea, cutting the esophagus like that?
The veterinary profession's clear concern with this is on animal welfare grounds, so we of course recognise the religious and cultural dimensions, but we're very focused on the animal welfare element. The EU and UK legislation requires that animals be stunned before slaughter, which renders them immediately unconscious, and then the unpleasant things that happen afterwards happen to an animal that is insensible and incapable of feeling that. What we support, other than stunning, is for food to be labelled not necessarily according to whether it's halal or kosher,
so that bleeding,
but whether or not
is that
it's
extremely...
stunned or not stunned. And that's important because of the welfare risks that people in society are increasingly concerned about. Thankfully, more and more people in the UK, across Europe, and even further afield are concerned with the welfare of animals. And yes, if we look at the science, there are at least 3 welfare risks. One is the delay to unconsciousness with the ritual slaughter.
There is none at all.
And because of that delay, it allows pain to be felt, and there is scientific evidence to support that. And there is also the risk. There is also a risk.
We've already done the trials, and we know from the EEG and ECG that animals do not feel the pain, it goes into a swoon.
And aside from the pain, which was going to be my third point, is that animals slaughtered in this way also aspirate some of their own blood, and we know that that happens to a high percentage. So if you can imagine what it's like perhaps to have some water go down the wrong way, if you like. There are 2 parts of the respiratory tract which are very sensitive to that, the glottis and carina, which is where the trachea enters the lungs. That's associated with some of the burning pain that you get with certain respiratory infections.
So stunning's the best way?
If you ever witness stunning, I don't know who in the audience and at home has seen it, but it's remarkable. It's a technology that's now available to us where a very large beast, a cow if you like, is touched on the forehead in the case of captive bolt stunning, and it's like blowing a candle out. I mean, it's like switching off a light. They drop to the ground, instantly insensible, and then any argument about future pain at that moment in time, allowing them a humane death.
Rabbi, do you want to come in here?
Is relevant.
Sure. So there's been 2 points discussed here. First is the...
we're on the cruelty point right now.
The cruelty point. So, I mean, one of the things we know about the meat industry is that it is industry. There's a lot of pressure to make sure that it's run efficiently, and the official running of a slaughterhouse doesn't necessarily...
Is kosher slaughter cruel?
The efficient running of a slaughterhouse isn't necessarily in the best interest of animal welfare, because if you're trying to process many animals and you're under time pressure and time restraints and you're trying to get as many animals as possible, so what happens inevitably is that there's misstunning. Apparently about 9% of the statistics show of animals are misstunned, which means they have to be shot twice. The gassing of animals, or the pigs are gassed. That means 16% of pigs are not being gassed properly, and they're suffering pain. So that amounts in total to approximately 3 million animals. 3 million animals being misdone every year.
Sure.
The total amount of animals which are shechted, which have kosher slaughter every year is 90,000. So I think Sean should be more concerned about 3 million animals being misstunned and being electrocuted or shot twice than 90,000 being slaughtered kosher way.
There are 2 points I'm keen to make. One is that the religious texts which prescribe how meat should be made available for the halal and kosher market, my colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong, but originally they are to convey a sense of moral respect for animals. There were sort of public health and public safety benefits as well to slaughtering in these ways, but originally making a prayer or saying a prayer at the time of death conveyed a sense of moral respect. What's happened since those texts were written is that science has advanced and technology has advanced, which allows us perhaps to interpret those texts, hopefully,
they didn't have stunning back then.
in a different way.
Is the rabbi right about that?
Sorry, yes, I would like to address that as well, sorry, yes.
At least. But the other issue is that the main lobby wanting is the cartridge manufacturers. This is a massive industry. So cui bono, always look for the earner, and that's where you have to be looking here.
Do you think some of the opposition is Islamophobia?
Oh, of course, and it always has been.
Is it?
But the point is, as the gentleman was saying,
well, the British Veterinary Association aren't Islamophobic. Oh, the RSPCA aren't Islamophobic.
Well, they shouldn't, but I've written to Mark Ransom for the past so many years, and we've had this. My cousin was an inspector with the RSPCA, so they won't listen, but there is a lobby very powerful.
Let's go to the audience. Yes, sir, good morning. Hi.
Hiya. I think everyone should have the right to know what they're eating. I think it should be labelled.
Lady over here, hi.
People should have the right to know, but if it causes, obviously, if it causes allergies and things like that, but you're just going to cause more racism and alienate the Muslim and Christian relationship.
Yeah, so it's all about that. You wanted to come in, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we're missing the point here. You know, how can I put it? There's a lot of people right now in South Africa who are starving. Do you really think they care whether it's labelled or not? You know, and there's bigger issues here. You know, I think this is a trivial debate, you know, on this particular issue. People are dying in South Africa, right? Why? Why? Because they've got no food. Now, if you give them a piece of chicken and say, oh, you can't eat that because it's you know, it hasn't been labelled or it hasn't been killed in a blessed or in a certain way, the first thing they're going to do is eat it. And that is more important than labelling than anything.
There's a small point here. Is that
Peter,
people who are cruel to animals often go on to be cruel to people. And I think a society that's not concerned about cruelty to animals is a society that can also be cruel to people. I think that's why one of the many reasons why it's worth discussing.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Bruce?
But I think
hang on, Bruce.
Hitler was a vegetarian. It doesn't seem to me that either halal or kosher. It's not about cruelty, either halal or kosher. It's about religious tradition. And if people want to keep up their religious tradition, I think they should be allowed to.
Should there be labelling, clear labelling?
I see no harm in labelling. We're going towards lots of labelling. I don't see what damage that is. And by the way, as we're too sensitive about Islamophobia, I think some people could, for instance, complain, not me, about the method of halal killing. That doesn't mean they're Islamophobes. I think President Sarkozy's motives are exceedingly questionable. Why is he raising this a week ago? He's trying to get the Le Pen vote. Yeah. So I think that is pretty...
Rabbi Dovid.
What we're concerned about is that there's a sort of disproportionate focus here on labelling a certain kind of meat, which is so there's assumption that if it's been slaughtered in a kosher way, that somehow that's cruel to animals. There's no evidence to demonstrate that. In fact, the leading animal scientists say that the experiments they've done show that the animal after where the throat's been cut doesn't react at all, doesn't pull itself away from the harness,
scientific consensus?
Experience pain.
Yes.
We could debate the specific...
We're reading the same scientific papers.
Let us run the same tests that they did in Germany now under his jurisdiction.
What is the current scientific consensus?
Evidence. We are relying heavily on behavioural and brain measures. We've made very good use of electroencephalograms, which give us a specific measure of brain activity that's linked to pain, and we can look at the pathology in the respiratory tract that I was talking about. But if we just talk about it from the point of view of a consensus, this is a view shared by not only the British Veterinary Association, the Federation of Veterinarians of Europe, which represent 38 countries across Europe, The Dial-Rel project, which looked at 200 scientific references from across 11 European countries, the EU Scientific Panel on Animal Health and Welfare, the Farm Animal Welfare Committee, which advises the British government, and we've all reached the same consensus.
OK, James, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, well, very briefly, we've overlooked the drive. Bruce mentions the Le Pen vote that Sarkozy's trying to sort of co-opt. There is Islamophobia intrinsic to that, even though it's an overused word. And the Islamophobia is born of the English Defence League and the far-right rhetoric, which says that Muslims are trying to take over the world. Creeping Sharia is the phrase that they use. So what they're forcing us to eat their Sharia slaughtered food is part of the sort of language, the vocabulary of hate. And to bring us back to where we began this morning, back to Anders Breivik in that Norwegian courtroom, it was Voltaire, I think, who said that those who can convince us of absurdities will also convince us to commit atrocities. And that's why the Islamophobia angle is important.
Nicky.
Last word. Yeah, 20 seconds.
The Halal Food Authority, which is the largest halal certifying body, a Muslim organisation in this country, also believes there should be labelling. Are they Islamophobic? No, they're not.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. Next week we're back here for our special Is Religion Good for Children? Have a great